As we welcome in the Director of Content for Elite Prospects, our friend Cam Robinson. Caused quite a stir last week with this report about JT Miller and Quinn Hughes. And look where we are a week later. Cam, huh? Was this not foreseeable?
No, of course not, right? We put out that little tidbit last week. Everybody took it really calmly. It was very well received. I didn't get any hateful
Measured
DMs.
Right.
Absolutely, right? Like this is the Vancouver market. Nothing but level-headedness going on. But I get it, obviously, right? It's a hot market right now, and it's usually a pretty hot market, so it's extra hot.
Which dovetails into our poll question for today, actually, because, I think there's some people that would say, for the sake of Quinn Hughes and others in and around the room, addition by subtraction is part of the equation. Again, that's not for everybody, but I think for some measure or some part of the fan base and maybe some part of the organization, that is true. So we're asking people if they're willing to take less, in hopes of just ending it all and possibly getting the addition by subtraction bump as well.
I think that's where they're at, regardless of whether management or the fan base wants it. I think that they've kind of reached that boiling point where they're like, we have to do something. They are, working diligently to get something done to move JT Miller. Obviously, it got very close with the Rangers on the weekend, but. I put out that article yesterday where I chatted with 4 or 5 executives. I talked to some agents. I talked to some scouts, and I was just trying to get like a feel. And I put that in the article that from organizations that were very unlikely to be involved in this trade, because I wouldn't get a response from the other ones.
Right.
But it's not going to be a big return. I think everyone should wrap their head around that, right? I know that Larry Brooks in New York was saying like, oh, maybe it's Lafreniere or Brendan Schneider. If that was the one of those players who's involved, the deal's already done, right? Like people are like, oh, Dallas is involved. It's got to start with Logan Stankoven. No, it doesn't. It's just not going to be the case. And so, kind of the common theme from all these execs that I talked to and these agents were like, you get yourself a pretty good roster player, kind of a mid-level roster player. Mid to late first, maybe you get like a secondary prospect, a B-level prospect. You call that a win in this circumstance because it's, he's an aging asset. He comes with a bit of the drama on the side, a bit of that baggage. And it's just, he has a no move clause. Vancouver's operating from a position of weakness. Everybody knows that they want to and they have to do something. And we've said it for years, right? Like opposing GMs, they're not throwing life preservers, right? They're throwing anchors when you're out there gasping for air. So nobody's lining up to put their best assets on the table, even though there are multiple teams still involved and kicking the tires, quite interestedly in bringing in JT Miller because he is a good player when he's on his game, an impactful player who can really help a contending team that looks to try to win over the next couple of years. So there are interests, but I don't think it's at this point the addition by subtraction is kind of like moot. It's just like if they want to make a deal and get him out of there, it's just the return's going to be lesser than people are going to be happy with, including management, I'm sure.
Let's deal with the particulars of that Rangers trade. Hedel, Lindgren, and then some of the minor leaguers who got scratched. What are your thoughts on those players, Cam?
As I say, it's going to be a muted return. It's like, that's a pretty muted return package there. Philip Hedel, he's 25, so there is runway left, but this is a guy who has like major concussion history. Like he has had serious concussion issues in the past. The production has been declining year over year. He kind of has this attitude that but this perception that he's good defensively. He's not that great defensively. He doesn't kill penalties. He's a 40% career face-off guy, $4.4 million over 3 years. It's like, if that's the mid of the lineup player getting in return, I'm like, I guess that's okay. Lindgren, 26-year-old left-hand D, 6 foot. He's kind of been a staple with Adam Fox on that top pair there in New York, has had good seasons defensively. This year isn't one of those seasons. He's really struggled defensively. And, brings nothing offensively. So he's not a righty. He doesn't bring anything offensively or puck moving, and the defense is kind of weak right now. And so it's not so great. On the prospect side of thing, Adam Sikora, he was one of my favorite prospects in that 22 class, super, super young in that draft class. So he just turned 20, already has a lot of experience in the AHL and is now starting to find his legs offensively. Loads of pace, loads of energy. I think he would fit in well with the group of prospects that they're bringing along as kind of a complementary third line type of projection. And then Kemmler he's 6'5". He skates well for his size. He can hit, he can fight a little bit, but like we're talking depth, bottom of the lineup projection sort of thing. So not a true asset in any sense. none of those are really true assets, even a conditional first, which apparently is what kind of blew up the deal anyways.
Yeah, I also saw that you tweeted you have some doubts or you have some suspicions about the Carolina interest here. Explain.
Yeah, so I went off of when I said I'd be surprised when Elliot Friedman said that he didn't know, but he wondered about Carolina being kind of the team that's maybe sneaking into the front of the race here. And I just tweeted that I'd be surprised because it really doesn't fit their style of things. That they don't often go after older players with lots of term left on their deal. The only outlier of that is Brent Burns, who they brought in as an older player who still had multiple years left on his contract. But Burns, I know that they did that because he's such like a physical specimen that they projected that he would, outkick kind of traditional age norms, and be still a productive player late, and just like a great guy in the room, a great individual. It really would have filled in with their culture well. So they did that, but he's the outlier. And we know that they really were hard after Pettersson last year. I think that they went hard after him again this year. But I had someone reach out to me and basically say, like, Carolina's interested in anything that gives them plus value. So if they smell blood in the water and they think that JT Miller is going to be had for a song, well, then they want to be doing the one. They want to be the one doing the singing, right? They want to be the one pulling it in there for good value because worst case scenario, JT, is that, he becomes like a power play specialist and a winger in your top six, that you can still recoup a lot of that value and that impact on the ice in certain situations. And so, for the back half of what he has remaining on his deal, or 60% of that deal, I think he can provide that, and then they can swallow, the last year or two if the production really falls off a cliff when he's older. But if you can get him at a really discount price, I think Carolina, they have the assets to try to mix and match and put something together that might intrigue Vancouver. They have picks. They have a lot of things that they could work out to bring him in, and I think that he would elevate their team, adding another center, adding someone who can move on to the power play, a big physical body. I think that he's going to ramp up that dressing room a little bit too, and they have kind of the strength in their leadership group to kind of bring that in and have it be a smooth kind of slide in. So at this point, as of this morning, I've had enough people tell me that Carolina is definitely in on this, that I said I'd be surprised yesterday. I'm no longer surprised. So that was me on a miss.
Don't forget the faceoff specialist element to his game as well, which you wouldn't think would be, part of that dropping off the cliff when age definitely takes over. I think there's still obviously a chance they go back to the Rangers as well. Do you want Hedl in that package or not?
I mean, he's probably the best part of that package, even though I kind of just ripped him for everything he doesn't bring to the table. Because again, like, he's a player that I have liked in the past. It's just it's been a hard go, and with those concussion history, I just don't see how they're going to change that package up. If it was the conditions on the first and they go back to the Rangers, I assume that's the part of the deal that they're going to have to work on. The rest of it is kind of going to be solidified by and large. So if it goes back to the Rangers, and I imagine it's going to be Hedl, Lindgren as kind of the main pieces of that deal, because they really don't have any other options. I don't think it's going to be Zibanejad. I think that kind of is asked and answered on both ends by him and by the Canucks. And they don't really have any other centers on their team that would make a lot of sense.
Well, Trocheck, who has trade protection, and I'm also told is very close with JT Miller, like amongst his closest friends in hockey, and that maybe that is one of the reasons why.
Maybe another Rangers, Pittsburgh guy too. Is he a Pittsburgh
That's
guy?
it. They're both Pittsburgh. And so yes, I wouldn't suspect.
Do you switch it up though?
Well, I was going to ask, if it's Hedl and Keandre Miller, does that change the equation for you, Cam?
Absolutely, it does. I even have on my little notes here to talk to you guys. Give me Keandre. I'll take Keandre Miller. It's in cap locks. I put it in big.
Okay, let me ask you this: Keandre and Hedl, or Keandre and a first that can help you flip and get a center elsewhere.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? That's the big thing, is that if you can use a first and Adam Sikora, something like they did with the Bo Horvat deal, right, where they salvaged that deal, which would have been, not so great if they didn't flip that for Hronek, and Hronek really kicked his coverage there. is that if they can take those assets and flip them, then you might have something cooking here. But I think if you put Keandre Miller in the deal, he now becomes the centerpiece of that deal. And I think it probably changes the complexion of it greatly, the rest of the package, even though Keandre is having a bit of a down season himself. But it's been difficult in New York, right? Not many guys have been having great years there. So I think you pull him out of there. Again, he's a lefty, unfortunately. But I think long-term, the Canucks, they need both. They need guys on both sides. So.
Okay.
I don't want to relitigate this in particular.
Oh God, I'm scared.
I'm excited.
I don't like it when he says that.
But I have heard this narrative now a couple of times with regards to that Bo Horvat trade, and I understand that Anthony Beauvillier did not work out here. I think they had higher hopes for Beauvillier. I think Alvin was persuaded by a strong playoff run or two that Beauvillier had, particularly against his Pittsburgh Penguins at the time. But they salvaged Anthony Beauvillier. Remember, they moved him for a pick that they later turned into Zadorov. They also, as Cam notes, the first-round pick that moved for Philip Roenick completely recast their team. We cannot undersell what Philip Roenick brought to this team. But even if they had kept the pick, it was Axel Sandin Pellikka, if I'm not mistaken, selected with that pick. Like Sandin Pellikka and Atu Ratu for a half season of Bo Horvat. Remember, Bo was a free agent, right? That's not the worst return. Let's not castigate that trade. Why are you looking at me like that?
I don't think anyone's going to the wall saying that was going to be a bad trade.
Out to again? I don't want to spend a ton of time relitigating this, but I don't think that trade was as bad as some are making.
Not bad. I think it was a nonplussed return.
Yeah. You might have been able to look at it as like even money if they had taken Sandin Pellikka, but like give me Phil Peronic over Axel Sandin Pellikka too.
Well, of course,
right? Like,
of course. He's a proven
Certified.
commodity. Yeah,
Exactly,
but I mean, Sandin Pellikka was one of the best players at the World Juniors. Is one of the best defense prospects in the world right now.
Not bad. Not bad.
He's not
return.
that high up the list. Cam's not a fan.
I know.
Okay.
I know a lot of people love him, and he's got lots of offensive gear. I do question whether he's going to be like a top power play guy in the NHL, and if he's not, is his value going to be as high? Right.
All right, moving right along.
Yes. Yeah. Let's put that behind.
I have had my wrist slapped here, Rogerson, from both of them. Okay. Let's dig deeper a little bit on this since it has come into our orbit. A first-round pick. And the value of a first-round pick in 2025, and I've not yet seen it clearly reported that it was a 2025 first-round pick. But let's just assume
You'd have to think.
Well,
because the other doesn't have as much value.
The thing is, okay, so again, one of the things I was told, the Rangers weren't comfortable with this trade when they moved it up to ownership. And I do wonder if that's because Rangers ownership is looking at it and go, okay, that pick is like number 13 right now if all goes to Hoyle. But if our season sinks, that's a top 10 pick, and where it's even a potential lottery pick where we could pull, accelerate all the way to the top of a draft.
In a bad
draft.
draft.
I can understand why if you're the Rangers, you'd want to put protections on that pick. But you tell me, Cam, like what's the value of a first round pick this year from like 11 to 32, presuming somebody wanted to put protection and top 10 protection, which is a common thing we see on a first round pick they send Vancouver's way in a potential Miller deal.
I will say that when I was in Ottawa and kind of the Rangers were the team that everyone was talking about floating around Miller, that I was told that they would be dangling a 2026 just because of that fear. And at that time, they were probably even lower in the standings, which made a ton of sense, right? Is that you'd still probably put lottery protection on it for 26 because who knows with that aging core, even if you add JT Miller to that, you hope that that's going to push you up, but sometimes it doesn't. As far as this class goes, it's kind of a strange draft class, I would say. There's the top 5, and then there's a gap. And then it's like 10 to 20 is like a really big chunk of players. And if I'm picking like 15 or 14, I'm probably not thrilled with any of them in this year's class compared to like Zibuya went 12 last year and he looks like he's going to be like a number 1. There's not those guys that are going to be sitting there this year in all likelihood. So there's still some nice pieces. There's still some centers. There's still going to be some D. A kid like Keishon Aitchison's going to probably be there, or another guy, an OHL like Malcolm Spence. Braden Coots plays for the Thunderbirds. Who's got flashes some really high end playmaking and skills. So there are players in that zone that I think are going to be like, oh, that's an A rated prospect put into our pool. But you're not like getting up. You're not getting super excited about picking at 15, 16, 17. I mean, rarely are you, but it doesn't seem like there's going to be like a real steal at that zone.
Okay, good to know. And then lastly, buddy, because we know you do still follow these prospects after you evaluate them for all your draft work, Linus Karlsson, who has become Abbotsford's leading scorer, and like everybody on Abby and Fuego, these days, they sweep that 6-game homestand, and Karlsson piled up big numbers alongside Ratu, who is the AHL Player of the Week. We've talked a ton about Ratu in the past. Forecast me Linus Karlsson, and especially in the context in terms of the year he's having here.
And we should clarify, leading scorer in points per game, not in total points or in goal scoring. All those are different players because it's a weird
Spread
leadership
out.
group right now.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's Sheldon Dries who leads in goals.
No, it's Lekermaki leads in goals.
No. We're talking all time.
Oh!
We're talking all time Abbotsford Canuck here.
Oh.
I know they've only been there a few seasons.
Yeah, okay.
So it's Sheldon Dries who leads in goals and Linus Karlsson who leads in points.
Oh. Okay.
Nevertheless.
That's it.
There you go. Linus Karlsson, he is not a young man anymore in hockey terms. So the fact that he has not elevated into the NHL yet is not great for his long-term future. The fact that he is now really strongly producing the AHL is good. But if he had any chance of being a regular NHL player, he needs to produce. He needs to produce at like a super high level at his age. So racking up 10 points in 6 games over that winning streak, great news for him. Great for, the program down there in Abbey. I still see him long-term as kind of a depth piece. So someone who can come up when you need someone to. The foot speed has just never been his strength. He's improved it year over year, and I'll give him credit for that. He has, a really strong release. He knows how to get into the slot and let it go. But it's the difference between finding those pockets of space at the AHL level versus the NHL level. It is super difficult. And he's very, very unlikely to get put in those offensive roles to have that opportunity at the NHL level.
Tocchet praised his plumbing, his board work earlier in the season, though. So we'll see if maybe he can carve out that niche, because it may well be that some of these Abby Canucks are going to push for another look with the big club. Awesome stuff, Cam. Thank you for this. I much appreciate you being gentle on Axel Sandin Pellica.
He's a good kid, too. I almost got him a picture riding on one of his buddies' back after they won their quarterfinal match. I was pulling out my phone, and he jumped down. He's like, no, don't do it. I was like, all right.
What would you give up for good vibes?
Right?
Exactly.
There you go. Love the vibes.